I'm Danny Brown, and you're listening to 1 Minute Podcast Tips, the show that helps you be a better podcaster in just a minute a week. If you want more specific tips just for you and your podcast, check out the Magic Mike membership at 1minutepodcasttips.com/support. And now, this week's episode. When you've been podcasting for a while, one of the dangers you can face is Podfade. If you're not sure what Podfade is, it's basically burnout from your podcast, and it stops you wanting to make more episodes and maybe even give up your podcast altogether. Now, the good news is every podcaster goes through this, which means there are ways to avoid Podfade. The first thing is recognizing what it is that's making you feel you want to give up your podcast. Is it lack of downloads? Lack of listeners? Have you lost interest in the topic? Are there other things in your life getting in the way? Work, family, stuff like that. Once you recognize what's causing it, that's when you can start to look at ways to counter Podfade. Now, the key part is obviously, do you still enjoy podcasting? Podcasting takes a lot of work, and it could be that you feel the effort you put in isn't worth it anymore, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Other ways to avoid Podfade is ask yourself why you're podcasting. When you first started, you had a reason to podcast. Is that reason the same? Are you still going after the same audience? Do you still want to share the same insights from these early days? Podcasting is an evolving medium, so don't be afraid to change up the topics and approach of your podcast. If you feel that the schedule's too much, maybe you're producing daily podcasts or weekly podcasts, then consider changing it up to bi-weekly. Your listeners would rather have a show that you enjoy, on a frequency that you enjoy, as opposed to you pushing content out just for the sake of it. And if it's the downloads or lack of that has you thinking about giving up, keep this in mind. Podcasting is a long game. When you first started walking, you couldn't run fast. When you first started running, you couldn't sprint. Podcasting is exactly the same. Growth needs to be nurtured and worked on. See what's working for your listeners. See what kind of content is getting traction. Is it long form, short form, video, audio, how you deliver the topic? Little things like that can always be tweaked, and all that will help you towards your growth. The main thing to remember is Podfade affects every podcaster, and there are ways to overcome it. Until the next time, happy podcasting. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy 1 Minute Podcast Tips, be sure to share with your friends and other podcasters so they can enjoy it too. Until the next time, happy podcasting.